Are you coming to the tree where dead men called out for his love to flee?
We're joined by Josh Paul, the State Department official who resigned last month in protest of Biden's push to increase arms sales to Israel amidst its siege on Gaza, calling it short-sighted, destructive, and contradictory. In his resignation letter that went viral, Josh Paul wrote, quote, "We cannot be both against occupation and for it. We cannot be both for freedom and against it. And we cannot be for a better world while contributing to one that is materially worse. I believe to the core of my soul that the response Israel is taking, and with it the American support both for that response and for the status quo of the occupation, will only lead to more and deeper suffering for both the Israeli and the Palestinian people, and is not in the long-term interest. And it is not in the long-term American interest," unquote. Josh Paul is former director of Congressional and Public Affairs for the Bureau of Political Military Affairs in the State Department, which oversees arms transfers to Israel and other foreign nations.
There is no military solution here, and we are providing arms to Israel on a path that has not led to peace, has not led to security, neither for Palestinians nor for Israelis. It is a moribund process and a dead-end policy. And yet, when I tried to raise both of these concerns with State Department leadership, there was no appetite for discussion, no opportunity to, look at any of the potential arms sales and raise concerns about them, simply a directive to move forward as quickly as possible. And so I felt I had to resign.
So talk more about that. Talk more about what kind of dialogue goes on at the State Department. And if you, for example, have met with Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, not to mention President Biden, to voice your concerns. And what about other veteran State Department officials?
So typically there is a very robust policy process in the State Department for arms transfers, and there are a lot of those, right? So we're talking about 20,000 arms sale cases a year that the State Department processes, which could be anything from bullets to radios to fighter jets. And for each of those, there is a lengthy process sometimes that looks at, what are the pros and cons of the sale, what are its human rights implications. That has not happened in this context for Israel. And as I say, when I raised those concerns against the existing laws, against the existing policies, there was no appetite for that discussion. I have not personally spoken to Secretary Blinken about this, nor certainly to President Biden. But I know that in the time since I left, there has been increasing discussion within the State Department, but has not led to any change of policies. In fact, as you heard earlier on your show, Vice President Harris was just saying yesterday that we will not place any conditions whatsoever on our arms to Israel. And that is unlike any arms transfer decision I've ever been a part of. There's always discussion about should we condition this to address human rights issues.
Since you are in charge of arms sales, what does this $14 billion that it looks like both houses want to send it to Israel. It's just that the House one is controversial because they want to take that $14 billion from the IRS. And also they want to sever the funding for Israel from the funding for Ukraine. And Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, says he won't consider this bill. But it sounds like there is enough support in both houses for that extra, not the 3.8 or 3.3 billion yearly aid to Israel, but an extra $14 billion. You're the expert on arms sales. What would it be used for?
Yeah, and let me just say, I think there is, almost or near unanimous congressional support for this further military assistance to Israel. And I think what's fascinating about that is also there's a massive disconnect between where Congress is on these issues and where I think if you look at the polling, the American public are. And I think the current crisis is really crystallizing that difference. I don't think it will make any difference in terms of the passage of this package, but it may do down the line. With regards to this package specifically, it includes $3.5 billion in foreign military financing. Israel can draw on that to purchase essentially what it wants. And what's unusual about this as well, in addition to the removal of the notification, is that Israel would be entitled, under the proposal sent to Congress, to spend all of this money within its own defense industry. Israel is, of course, a top 10 exporter of arms around the world, often competing with the United States. And the idea that we will be providing funding to subsidize that competition is really unimaginable. I think there is just a rush to push everything they can while they feel there is a window of political opportunity here where there will be no significant opposition.
What kind of response was there to your resignation?
To my resignation, I would say there has been an overwhelming response that I've heard from folks, from colleagues inside not only the State Department, but across the US government, actually, on the Hill, in the Defense Department, in the uniformed military services, including in combatant commands around the world. People have reached out to me to say, we fully agree with you. Obviously everyone has their own personal circumstances. I think if we had universal healthcare, it would make it a bit easier for people to stand up on principle. I myself am, trying to figure out what I do next on healthcare. But the point is that so many people have reached out to say, we hear you, we agree with you. And I think, one of the things I found is that a lot of people can be in individual offices and say, I can't speak up because I will lose my job, I will put my career in jeopardy, and there's no one else here I can talk to, and yet I'm hearing from someone else just a few desks over who is saying the same thing. So I think there really is a communications crisis, a transparency crisis within the US government, and a policy crisis, because when you can't talk about foreign policy, when you can't debate, when you can't criticize, you don't end up with good policy.
Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it